Have you ever had a friend so close you felt like you shared the same soul? A friend who knew your deepest secrets, your wildest dreams, and your darkest fears. For Lola, that wasn't just one friend. It was two. Madison and Hunter. They were her everything. They'd spend hours in her sun-drenched bedroom, charting star maps on the ceiling, convinced they could find a new galaxy. They'd have whispered conversations late into the night, their voices a comforting hum against the silence. Madison, with her fiery spirit and infectious laugh, was the adventurer. Hunter, with his calm demeanor and thoughtful eyes, was the anchor. Together, they were Lola's perfect world. A fortress against the loneliness that sometimes crept in at the edges of her life. They were inseparable. The three of them were a constellation, a fixed point in Lola's universe. When Lola's parents argued downstairs, their raised voices a distant storm. Madison would crank up the music, and the three of them would dance until they were breathless, laughing the tension away. When Lola scraped her knee, learning to ride her bike, Hunter was the one who carefully cleaned the wound, his touch gentle, his presence a quiet reassurance. They weren't just friends, they were her protectors, her confidants, her other halves. Lola never felt alone because, with Madison and Hunter, she never was. She believed their bond was unbreakable, a promise sealed not with words, but with shared laughter and secret handshakes. But one crisp autumn morning, everything changed. Lola woke up to a room that felt strangely empty, unnaturally quiet. The usual morning chatter was gone. Madison wasn't there, perched on the end of her bed, ready to plan their day's adventures. Hunter wasn't sitting in his usual spot by the window, lost in a book. Lola called their names, her voice echoing in the stillness. She searched the house, her heart beginning to pound a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She checked their favorite hiding spots, the dusty attic, the willow tree in the backyard, the secret nook behind the bookshelf. They were gone. It was as if they had vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but a profound and aching silence. The days that followed were a blur of confusion and despair. Lola's world, once so vibrant and full of life, had faded to gray. The silence in her room was deafening. Food tasted like ash, colors seemed muted, and the laughter of other children felt like a foreign language. She'd sit by the window for hours, just watching, waiting, hoping to see Madison's wild red hair or Hunter's familiar figure walking up the path. She pleaded with her parents, her voice trembling. "Where are they? Did you see them leave?" But they would just exchange worried glances, offering her empty comforts and confused shrugs. They didn't understand. How could they? Madison and Hunter were real they ought to be. The line between what was real and what wasn't began to blur. Lola would catch fleeting glimpses of them in a crowd, a flash of red hair, a familiar silhouette only for them to dissolve like mist when she got closer. She'd hear their laughter on the wind, a whisper of her name in a quiet room. Was her mind playing tricks on her? Or were they trying to reach her? The desperation was a physical weight, pressing down on her chest. She replayed every memory, every conversation, searching for a clue, a reason for their sudden departure. Did she say something wrong? Did she do something to drive them away? The questions tormented her, looping endlessly in her mind. One rainy afternoon, while rummaging through an old chest in the attic, looking for anything, any trace of them, her fingers brushed against a worn, leather-bound journal. It was her own, from years ago. So opened it, and the pages were filled with her childish scrawl, detailing her adventures with Madison and Hunter. She described their shared secrets, the games they played, the dreams they had. But as she read, a strange and chilling realization began to dawn. The descriptions were perfect. Too perfect. Madison was everything she wished she could be. Brave, outgoing, fearless. Hunter was everything she felt she needed. Calm, steady, and wise. They were not just her friends. They were pieces of her. The truth hit her with the force of a physical blow, knocking the air from her lungs. Madison and Hunter weren't real. They never had been. They were born from her own loneliness, crafted by a child's desperate need for companionship. They were imaginary friends, intricate and vivid, but imaginary nonetheless. The realization didn't bring relief, only a new, deeper wave of grief. She wasn't just mourning the loss of her friends. She was mourning a part of herself. A world she had so carefully constructed. The fortress she had built against loneliness had crumbled, and now she was left standing in the ruins, completely and utterly alone. Was it better to live in a beautiful lie than to face a harsh reality? Lola looked out the rain-streaked window, the world outside a smear of gray. The silence in the room was no longer just an absence of sound. It was the sound of reality. Madison and Hunter were gone, and they weren't coming back. But as the initial shock subsided, a tiny, fragile thought began to take root. They had given her strength when she had none. They had taught her bravery and wisdom. They were a part of her story, a part of who she had become. Maybe she didn't need them anymore. Maybe, just maybe, she could learn to be her own Madison, her own Hunter. The path forward was uncertain, and the loneliness was still a shadow at her side. But for the first time since they disappeared, Lola felt a flicker of something new. Hope. The journey to finding herself had just begun. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that explores the depths of the human heart. When I opened my eyes, Hunter was gone. At first, I thought he had just stepped away for a second. Maybe he went to grab drinks or talk to someone. I looked around, still standing in the middle of the dance floor, expecting him to walk back toward me with that warm smile that always made my heart feel lighter. But instead, I noticed people staring. Some were whispering, others were laughing. My cheeks started burning as confusion slowly turned into panic. I spun around, scanning the room, hoping to catch even a glimpse of him. "Hunter," I called out softly. No answer. Then suddenly, Emily's voice cut through the music. "Hey everyone, look!" The music stopped, and the giant screen behind the dance floor flickered to life. My stomach dropped as I watched a video start playing. It showed me dancing alone, smiling at empty air, reaching forward like I was holding someone who wasn't there. And then came the worst part. It showed me leaning forward, kissing absolutely nothing. The entire room burst into laughter. I froze. My heart pounded so loudly it felt like it might burst out of my chest. My mind kept repeating one question over and over. Where did Hunter go? I backed away slowly, my eyes filling with tears. I didn't wait to hear anything else. I turned and ran out of the mansion, down the long driveway, and all the way home without stopping. My shoes slipped on the pavement, and my breathing felt uneven, but I didn't care. I just needed to get away from everyone. I climbed into my treehouse and curled into a corner, hugging my knees. The place that once felt magical now felt quiet and empty. A few minutes later, I heard the ladder creak. I wiped my face quickly, expecting my parents, or maybe even someone from school. But instead, Jen climbed inside. She didn't say anything at first. She just sat across from me, looking calmer than I'd ever seen her. That alone felt strange. "Lola, can you talk to me?" she asked softly. I hesitated, staring at the wooden floor. My voice shook when I finally spoke. "I thought Hunter was real. I thought he actually liked me." Jen didn't laugh. She didn't roll her eyes. She just listened. I told her everything. About Madison showing up when I felt alone. About Hunter helping me feel confident. About how losing both of them felt like losing pieces of myself. When I finished, I expected her to tell me I was weird or childish. But instead, she reached over and gently squeezed my hand. "Lola," she said, "sometimes when people feel lonely, their imagination creates comfort in really strong ways. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means you are trying to protect your heart." I looked up at her, surprised by how kind her voice sounded. "For a long time," she continued, "I thought you hated me. But I think maybe we both felt alone in different ways." That hit me harder than anything else that night. Then she smiled slightly and added, "And for the record, if anyone deserves to feel embarrassed tonight, it's Emily, not you." I blinked. "Wait. What do you mean?" Jen's eyes sparkled with a mischievous look I had never seen before. "Let's just say I have an idea." The next evening, Jen dragged me along on what she called a mission. Without going into too much detail, let us just say Emily definitely didn't expect her birthday decorations to include a very messy surprise. It was silly, chaotic, and honestly, one of the first times Jen and I had ever laughed together. For the first time, she didn't feel like my rival. She felt like my sister. A few days later, moving day arrived. The trucks were packed. The house felt empty, and I knew it was time to say goodbye to the only place I had ever called home. Before leaving, I climbed into the treehouse one last time, hoping to hold on to the memories. That's when something unbelievable happened. Madison and Hunter appeared, standing side by side like they had always known each other. My breath caught in my throat. "You're both here." They smiled, but there was something gentle and bittersweet in their expressions. "We came to say goodbye," Madison said, swinging her legs casually like she used to. "You're stronger now," Hunter added. "You don't need us the same way anymore." Tears blurred my vision. "But you helped me when no one else did." Madison grinned. "That's what friends are for." Hunter nodded. "Now it's time for you to let real people see how amazing you are." I wanted to beg them to stay. I wanted to freeze that moment forever. But deep down, I knew they were right. "Thank you," I whispered. They smiled one last time and slowly faded away. Leaving Atlanta felt scary, but Chicago turned out to be the beginning of something new. Jen and I started spending more time together, and I began seeing a side of her I had never noticed before. She wasn't just the perfect genius everyone admired. She was exhausted, stressed, and secretly overwhelmed by the pressure to always win competitions. One night, she admitted something that shocked me. "I don't even like spelling bees anymore," she confessed quietly. "I just kept doing them because I thought it made Mom and Dad happy." For the first time, I saw how heavy her world had been all along. "You should tell them how you feel," I told her. "I've got your back." And she did. It wasn't easy, but our parents finally listened. They realized how much pressure they had put on her, and things slowly started changing for our whole family. Jen and I grew closer after that. We shared jokes, secrets, and late-night talks. Somewhere along the way, she became the best friend I had been searching for my entire life. Months passed, and life finally felt balanced. I made new friends at school, joined drama club, and even started writing stories about my adventures growing up. Things weren't perfect, but they were real, and for the first time, that felt enough. One evening, while cleaning out old boxers in our attic, I found something strange tucked inside one of my childhood notebooks. It was an old drawing I barely remembered making. The picture showed me standing between two people, a girl with messy hair and a boy with a familiar smile. Madison. Hunter. But what made my heart skip a beat wasn't the drawing itself. It was the date written at the bottom. I had drawn it years before I ever met Hunter, and before Madison first appeared in my tree. And as I stared at the page, trying to make sense of it, I suddenly heard a faint knock coming from the attic window.